All right, let's lock it in with Cam Rogers right here on the Believe Podcast Network, the number one podcast network for professionals. Very excited about this conversation. The quarterback himself, Jason Campbell, former Auburn quarterback and NFL quarterback, of course, host of Believe in Everything Auburn with Taylor Davis as well. You know, doing some research on Jason, I was sadly reminded of that Week 9 game in 2013 when Jason was a quarterback for the Browns. He lit up my Ravens. I looked at that score. I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. Jason, I was so annoyed with you that week. You absolutely carved us up. But dude, it's great to kind of like sit back and chill with you and chat some football, man. Thanks for coming on.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, it's great to be able to chit chat. Rather than texting a lot, we do text, time to time. But it's always good to get on the podcast now and actually do some real work together. So I tell you what, I remember that AFC game against against the Ravens. I ended up getting AFC Player of the Week that week, and I should have got another one, man. We had the Patriots a couple of weeks later. We was up by 12, like a minute and 50 left. And I threw for almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, and it's just, we found a way to lose. So at that time, it's just the Browns always finding a way to lose. You know what I'm saying? Like, we was talented, but just couldn't finish. So, but it was a good time. Good time. I remember that. Great memory.
Yeah, absolutely. That was in Cleveland too. And I also looked at the box score. Joe Flacco was our leading rusher that game. So I'm just like, wow, this was horrible. And I'm an offensive line guy, Jason. So when you're watching an offensive line that isn't playing well, it's just not fun. It's not.
Yeah, our defense got after them that day.
Yeah,
we really put it on them. So it was a great team win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, let's talk about Auburn here and your coverage of the team. Obviously, you cover them here on the Believe Network, but also for the radio network. Just tell me about that experience for you so far. Obviously, that transition from playing and now being in the media.
Yeah, I tell you what, for me being in the radio at Auburn Sports Network, it was surreal. They reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to, join the crew, and I said for home games, and I said, yeah, sure. It's a great way to get back on campus, great way to be around the program and continue to grow. And so, it's been a fun ride. I drive down. It's an easy drive for me from Atlanta. It's 2 hours straight down 85 and, do your games. And sometimes I spend the night, sometimes I come back. But, it's really opened up the doors for me in other areas, where I'm able to do CBS now with Monday NFL QB with Adam Shine and Trenton Green and those guys. I'm on there a couple of times during the year. So, it gave me a platform and everything. And I think also doing the Believe podcast with Taylor Davis, I think that really gave me a platform, having an opportunity to, be on there with a fellow Auburn person, and Taylor's done some great things in college, covering college games and covering Carolina Panthers and Kansas City Royals and everything. So, and she knows her stuff. So it's easier to do a podcast with someone that kind of knows the game, as well as she does. And we kind of cover a lot of things and we kind of have great chemistry. So, I kind of enjoy that aspect of it. And I think podcasts are a great thing. I do think it gives people an opportunity to have voices and everything. And so, I enjoy it. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been promoting your show, I want to say, for 2 years now, because you guys have been going strong for quite a while. And Taylor Davis is a pro's pro. She is very seasoned and has done a lot. So you guys are fantastic. I do want to start with your recent tweet here, and I'm going to read it for the people at home because this went viral. It was so funny. So you go, quote, "No offense, but every time they show 1957 and 2010 national champions, I can't help but feel left out because the 2004 team was the real deal and we get no respect that we deserve." Of course, Jason, they're referencing that 2004 perfect season. You went to the Sugar Bowl, defeated Tech. So what did you think about the reaction to that tweet? Did you expect that much engagement? I'm sure you did.
Well, at the time, I didn't expect a whole lot of engagement. I feel like some people would probably, engage in it, but you're right, it did go viral. And I'm just kind of speaking for a lot of guys that played on that team. We always talk about it amongst each other. We just like, every time we show 1957 or 2010, you can think about the 1993 season. You can think about the 1983 season. You can talk about, the 2004 season, which a lot of people consider us probably the best team to come through Auburn and everything. And not to seem like, it's frustrating at times because we do feel left out, and we do feel like, no one really, it's almost like you going on a retreat, you got left behind. and everybody else is on the retreat, and they realize like, oh snap, we forgot that we left somebody behind. We're that person that we feel like they got left behind. And we just feel like we should get more notoriety than we do. And, of course, I say it got vacated by USC, and that was tough because, we was a team that really earned the right to play for a national championship and didn't get the opportunity. We beat, I think, 5 top 10 teams that year and climbed our way all the way up to the top. But at the same time, it was just an emotional thing that I was just saying. I wasn't, I was just really just putting it out there like, hey, how come 2004 season is not up there? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not our fault we didn't get a chance to go play in the game. It just put more notoriety and more recognition and everything. So some recruits don't even know that. Now, I think some of these guys was 2 years old, 4 years old, now coming onto the Auburn campus. They don't know that. They don't know about what happened and how the playoff system kind of got started. I do feel like the 2014 was the reason that we do have playoffs and everything, because that's when the conversation started, because not only us, but Utah was left out as well.
Yeah. Is that the era of the computers? And that sort of puts it all together. The BCS national title game, of course, the Orange Bowl, USC and Oklahoma. So you sort of answer this question, but do you at all, like even now, just think to yourself, what could have been if we battled the Trojans or battled the Sooners? And do you think you would have beaten them?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think for us, it was a revenge game. We lost to them out there in 2002, and then USC, we lost. We ended up dropping a pass to win the game at the end. And so they didn't blow us out there. That's the year we actually should have beat them in USC. And then the next year, we changed offense coordinators. Bob Petrino went to Louisville, took the head coaching job. So everyone that was on our offensive staff never been an offense coordinator before and never called plays. And your first game was against USC. So, it wasn't a warm-up. And you can tell the huge difference in that game because things wasn't flowing. Things wasn't like it was the year before when we had a legit offensive coordinator. And then, the next year after that season, we ended up getting Al Borges, kept all our other coaches, which as well as we should, because we respect them and they was great coaches. They wasn't offensive coordinators, and then all of a sudden you bring in Al Borges and he keeps everything the same. And he just knows how to put all the pieces together by utilizing everybody's ability. And that's the sign of being a musician at coordinating, because you know how to get the best out of every player and how to mix and match guys. And he knew exactly what to do. And he did a great job. We ended up going 13-0 that year. And then after I graduated, they went 11-2 the next year, and he was still there. So it just goes to show you, the importance of coordinators. So we was ready for USC because we felt like we matched up very well. Feel like our defense was great. We didn't have a lot of weaknesses, and that's what you need in order to go and win games.
Man, I bet your eyes must have rolled when you realized you weren't in that title game. That's so frustrating. And I guess you sort of talked about this too, about starting that conversation with the playoff format. And now there's more conversation about expansion. Obviously, I would assume you're very much in favor of expansion. Where do you stand on that?
I do think it needs to be more than 4.
Yeah.
I definitely think so. That because it's hard. If you look at it this year, it's hard just to pick 4 teams. You have, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan State, Oregon, Cincinnati, Ohio State. It's just so tough. Like, to just say, okay, we're going to put 4 teams out. So who are you going to leave out? So right now, an undefeated Cincinnati team is being left out. Right now, an undefeated Oklahoma team is being left out because Oklahoma kind of done it to themselves, that they barely beat Tulane, they barely beat Kansas, 2 teams that are 1-6 and 1-7, and you have to go down to the end of the game to beat them. So, that puts a knock on you. But I definitely think it should go 6 to 8 teams. Maybe your top 2 teams gets a bye the first one. Just do it like a playoff format like the NFL kind of does. But I think it's going to end up being 12 because that's what they said. I think they want to try to get every division winner as possible. And then, they're expecting probably 2 from the SEC, which, especially with us suspending with Oklahoma and Texas, it could be 3 one year. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, this thing is about to get interesting. And I think when you go to 4, Cam, the problem that happens, it made all the other bowl games seem like they was not legit. Like, I remember when I was playing, if you played in bowl games and you got a New Year's Day bowl, that was huge for your university. Now, if you get a New Year's Day bowl, people are like, oh, who cares? You're not in the playoffs. So it kind of minimized the rest of the bowl games, which are still big, but people don't see it that way now because people only focus on the playoff format.
And it's so interesting. And of course, if there was a 12-team playoff format right now, Auburn would just be on the outside, but we're not at the end of the year yet. They're number 13. The first rankings came out here, Jason, and wanted to just get your overall macro thoughts here on the Tigers' season so far. There were some changes at the quarterback position at one point, but we're back to Bo Nix. What do you think about his play so far and just general thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like overall, I feel like Coach Harsin's done a really good job. You got to think these was not even his recruits. He hasn't had an opportunity to put his recruiting class together. He came in late in January when he got the job. So a lot of kids had already signed under Gus. And so I think he's done a really good job of taking these kids and making them buy into the system that he's trying to bring in. And I think for Bo, I think his last 3 games have been probably his best games of his career. Just the way he's matured from being taken out of the game and responding from it. I do think that was a turning point for him, was to be on the sideline for a little bit of time and just see things and from a different way. Because when he came out of college, he was instantly given the job, and everything. And so this was the first time he probably had to face adversity like that. And I think it made him mature a little more. And I think it made him more aware of what he was doing. He probably went back and he readjusted, some of his playing style. He doesn't really run around a whole lot. He still does, but not as much as he was before. So I just feel like he's taking a step up in maturing as a quarterback in the SEC. So I really think over the last 3 weeks, he's really been very consistent. He's been, his completion percentage has been really good. The receivers have been doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I think the team is headed in the right direction. He has a really good run game with him. Defense is playing outstanding. We do have 2 tough games, though, Cam. We got, to get in the playoff talk. We shouldn't even talk about it until we have to beat Texas A&M. And then, there's a sneaky Mississippi State team that's out there. They went into Texas A&M and beat them a couple of weeks ago. And we get them at home next week. And that's an early game. That's 11 a.m. kickoff. So, you have to take it one game at a time, like Coach Harsin says, especially when you're dealing with a college kid, because you don't want to get caught slipping trying to think of the what ifs. You need to take care of business first.
All right, one game at a time. There is so much truth to that. Well, maybe I should just cross off this next question here, Jason, because I really do want to talk about the Iron Bowl. And could that game be
we can talk about it. They can't talk about it. We can talk about it.
So we're good to talk. All right, let's do that.
We're not playing.
No, we're good. We're just pundits now.
All right.
So the Iron Bowl, I see it as potentially a play-in game to represent the SEC West and take on Georgia in the title game. What say you?
Oh, yeah, I like that aspect. To get Alabama in our backyard at home to decide to go into the SEC West Championship and get a rematch against Georgia. Like, if you coach Harsin in your first year, somebody told you that's be the scenario, would you take it? Yeah, he'll probably take that 9 out of 10 times. And I think this team would take that 9 out of 10 times based off the fact that we struggled against the Georgia State team and we have to beat them on a 4th and 10 type play. And then to see how the season has kind of started to turn for these guys. Like I said, if you can win these next 3 games and you can go into the Iron Bowl at 9-2 and it decides to go who goes to the SEC West Championship, man, you want to talk about a stadium rocking. You want to talk about like being electric, and you want to talk about getting recruits, having a big recruiting class. All these things play into a factor and everything. So it sounds really good right now, but I'm not going to get too excited about it until we take care of business first. And like I said, the team has already showed some highs this year of being able to face adversity and turn around. I think that's a sign of a maturing football program.
Yeah, you talk about adversity, Jason, and I think it's fair to say that no matter how elite you are of an athlete, you go through some bout of adversity. Everybody talks about Michael Jordan getting cut in his freshman year for basketball, right? Perfect example there. Is it true that adversity really can flip a switch in you and really just turn you into another gear somewhat, what we're seeing from Bo Nix?
Yeah, adversity going to do one or two things for you. You're going to go up from it or you're going to go down. Like, it's all about how you respond. And, you hear that a lot, how people respond and react to things. And like I said, a lot of folks didn't know how Bo was going to respond, and I think having TJ Finley there, when they signed TJ, I said, well, this can work better for Bo if he accepts it the right way and looks at it as like, okay, I accept challenge, because we all need to be challenged. Sometimes we all get too comfortable And I think he was just too comfortable. And I think he needed someone to kind of push him a little bit and make him come out of his comfort zone and motivate him a little bit more to, to be the player that he wants to be. And I think so a lot of that goes to having a great backup quarterback. And you need to have one of those guys, and not just for Bo's sake, but sure, what if, knock on wood, if he gets hurt and you're in a fight for the SEC West, if TJ's not there, who we putting in the game?
Yeah.
So people that think about that, because I hear a lot of fans saying, well, our TJ should just transfer now and all that type of stuff. I'm like, why are you pushing him to transfer? I just like, he's one play away from having to go into a game and help us win if something was to happen. I was like, so you need to be focused on the season and trying your best to instill in him the confidence that you had in him when he came into the Georgia State game. And that way you root for both of these guys. Don't try to pin them against each other. Root for both of them, because you could be in a Georgia situation where Bennett had to come in for JT Daniels,
right?
And if Bennett had transferred, then you wouldn't even be in the position you're in right now, because you'd be leaving predominantly just heavy on the defense, and you wouldn't have no one back there to pull the trigger as a quarterback, and you wouldn't be number one ranked team in the country. So, people got to get out of this aspect of it's just QB1. No, you got to have QB1 and QB2. Just look at the NFL this past weekend, Dallas Cowboys, Seattle Seahawks, and the Jets, all these was backup quarterbacks that helped their team win. And it's just, to me, I feel like Bo's done a really good job of accepting that. And I feel like he's responded well. And I do see a different person in him. I do see him as a more mature quarterback.
All right, well, we're headed to College Station, Texas A&M and Auburn doing battle. Auburn is just a tick better in the rankings than the Aggies. The Aggies are at 14, but according to Bet Online, Auburn is actually getting 4.5 points. So the Aggies are the favorites in this game, Jason. So give me your keys, and maybe if you have a score prediction, fire it at me.
Well, I say this. We ranked ahead of them in the coaches poll, right? Or the
I don't know about the
playoff
coaches
format.
poll. I didn't
playoff
check
format. Okay, playoff format, we're ranked ahead of them.
Correct.
I think a lot of that has to do with because they was on a bye week last week, and then we played Ole Miss. So Ole Miss was ranked 10. So I think that's how that system works. When you think about from the AP polls, we're right behind them, and that's okay. That's okay. You want to be running down people at this point of the year, and I think our team responds better to that. Anytime people doubt us, I think the guys respond better. So I do respect Texas A&M football team. I watched them play the Alabama game that night. It was an outstanding football game. I think Jimbo's, he's really getting the guys that he wants there now. And you got to think that this game is going to be, it's going to be another electric game, because Jimbo is looking at it the same way we're looking at it.
Yeah.
Jimbo is saying in his head, like, hey, guys, if we can beat Auburn, and then Auburn can do us a favor and beat Alabama the last game of the year, guess what? We go to the SEC championship. So they're looking at it the same way, but they can't do anything unless they can beat us. So that's what makes this game so pivotal and makes it a showdown. That's why people always say November is a month to remember in football, because this is where the meat and the potatoes, they start to separate, because either you playing for something or you already done checked out, you looking on to the next season. So you want to be playing for something in November. Right now, both of these teams are playing for something in November. And I really like our defense right now. We're playing a bend, don't break style defense. We're getting after people. We're hitting people. We're very stiff when you get to the red zone. And I think we're going to need that, especially when you're going against the Aggies team that can run the football. I'm not sure if the quarterback is completely back yet, but, they still can move the ball up and down the field. They have a big tight end that they love to throw the ball to. So they've always had big guys. I always say, man, I don't know where they get these kids from, but they've always had big guys. Right. He was one of them. So, we definitely got to go out there with our hard hat on and be ready to be physical. It's definitely going to be a physical football game. And then for us offensively, can we just sustain drives like we've been doing? That's what's helped us against Arkansas and Ole Miss. We sustain drives on offense where we're putting points on the board, and that puts a lot more pressure on the other teams against our defense. So if we can continue to do that, if Bo can continue to have the success that he's had on the road, like he has against LSU and against Arkansas in Aggie Stadium, then I think we have a real good chance to be very successful.
Auburn taking on Texas A&M this week. I think that's the SEC game of the weekend, in my opinion. You have LSU and Alabama,
Yeah,
Jason.
it's not the same.
Yeah,
It's
the
not
feels
the same.
are not the same.
Yeah, that used to be like a marquee game, man.
Oh,
It used to be
yeah.
like college game days there, and
8 o'clock on
just
CBS. Now it's 7
right,
on ESPN.
right,
Yeah.
7 on ESPN. So but we already know this is not gonna be for long. LSU gonna bounce back. They're gonna get the right coaching staff in there, and they're gonna get things back rolling. So that won't be a long process.
I do want to touch upon the rookie quarterbacks of the NFL, but before I get there, I've been dying to ask you this question, and I'm going off script a little bit here, but so I played 4 years of intramural flag football at the University of Maryland, quarterback.
There you go.
So my issue, there you go. My issue was always missing high, and I get picked off a lot by the safeties, right? So I had this arm slot like a baseball thrower because I have a baseball background.
Yeah.
Was that the reason why my balls were sailing? I wasn't getting the elbow up. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's the first thing. Your elbow's not up, your elbow's down. So then your balls tend to flare, the float on you. So you got to come over the top of the ball. That's why you had that elbow come over the top of it. So, if I'd have been coaching you back then, y'all might have won the intramural championships,
Oh, Jason, I could have used your help.
Speaking of baseball, man, what about my Braves last night? That was my childhood team. I grew up in Mississippi, so Braves was the only team in the Southeast. And so they have these guys in 1999. I was a senior in high school, but they lost. But, they won it in 95. But to go back and win it the way they won it this year, like it was the opposite of last year. Last year, they had one of the better records in the major leagues. And then all of a sudden, the Dodgers beat them and they was up 3-1. This year, the Dodgers had the best record in baseball. Yeah. And then the Braves beat them. And then they go on to beat a Houston team that could really hit the baseball and win the championship, man. So, congrats to those guys, man. Freeman and all those guys, man. They played great.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, all of America outside of the Lone Star State was rooting for the Braves. I can guarantee
it's pretty
that.
Popular. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's talk rookie quarterbacks, particularly Mac Jones. Now, I'm from New England. I know a lot of Patriots fans and what have you. So the consensus seems to me, Jason, that Mac is playing the best out of the rookie quarterbacks so far this year. What do you say about that? And just your thoughts in general about all these guys?
Yeah, Mac is eating a lot of good clam chowder, up there in Boston. I say this, he's really found himself with a really good coaching staff. If you're going to be drafted with Belichick, one thing Belichick is going to do is it's kind of like Nick Saban. He's going to surround his quarterback with a great defense, with some offensive guys. I know some people are going to say like, well, he didn't do this for Brady. Well, for most part of the years, it wasn't like Randy Moss all the time, but he had some really good targets, but he really had some great defenses with the Seymours and all those guys and Harris and those guys in the back. So, he's had some really good players. But when you think about Mac Jones and his progress, like they should have beat Tampa. They had Tampa beat. And they had Dallas beat. They lose them in overtime. And he's not losing them games. He's keeping them in games because he's not turning the ball over a lot. And he's been very, very, very accurate with the football on 12 to 15 to 20-yard throws. Where can he improve? He can improve on his down the field throwing. But it's hard to complain when you have a rookie quarterback that's keeping you on schedule, and you're not having to just keep everything vanilla. You're still being able to give him a big portion of the playbook. And he's able to move the team, and the guys are really they're believing in him. They're trusting in him. He just come off a Chargers win. He goes into LA and plays a really good Chargers team, and Justin Herbert, who's one of the young stars at the QB position, and he outperforms him and everything. So, I think it's a lot to be said that, hey, this kid, he's in the right system that fits him. He's in the right place at the right time. And I think they don't try to make him do things that are uncomfortable. They just try to keep him on schedule and utilize the best of his abilities. So I think it helps him to have a Josh McDaniels in his corner.
You're so positive and logical with breaking down Auburn. You should listen to Boston Sports Radio and how negative they are, regardless of what happens. Like Mac Jones is a dink and dunker and blah, blah, blah. It's so amazing. These couch experts, right?
Right. But that's because everybody wants to compare. We've gotten in trouble trying to compare everybody to Brady, trying to compare everybody to Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes, or like what happened to development? Let's think about it. When Brady first started, he was just wowing people. He came in, there was already a great defense and a great nucleus around him. He didn't start wowing people until after he was about his fifth or sixth year starting.
Yeah.
You think about Josh Allen. Buffalo was ready to get rid of him until they got a new coaching staff. And then they knew how to utilize his abilities and how to build around him. And now you look at him, he's a premier Pro Bowler. Patrick Mahomes, he stepped into Andy Reid's system that was already a good system with Alex Smith. He just put Patrick Mahomes in place because he has a bigger arm, and it just elevated. But it wasn't a whole bunch of changes that had to go on around him. So they developed him when he sat behind him. So even with Aaron Rodgers, I always tell people that say, man, Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest throwers I've ever seen. I said, he can throw it from any angle, anything. I said, but Aaron Rodgers, when he first came out of Cal, we was in the same draft class. He first came out of Cal, he was not throwing the football like that. If everybody remember, he used to hold the ball up here by his head when he threw passes. He sat behind Brett Favre. He got to a really good organization. They changed his throwing motion. They developed him. And when his time came to start playing, the team was already in play. It was a good team around Brett Favre. And then he stepped in, and then he was able to utilize his abilities because they didn't have to change everything else. And they developed him and everything else. And you look how they develop not just the quarterback position. Look how they develop all the players. Devontae Adams, these are not top picks. They develop them. And that's the difference between really good franchises and teams that's not really good franchises, is they develop their players. And so it's a lot to be said. If I'm New England people, I would pump the brakes a little bit just because Belichick is still building this football team. And, the fact that they're probably going to make the playoffs. Like, he's not a down the field thrower right now. When he was at Alabama, he had a lot of great receivers in Waddle and, and Smith and those guys. But at the same time, yes, the NFL is harder, but he'll get better at throwing the ball down the field. But right now, be happy that he's completing balls and keeping you on schedule. He's not turning the ball over every time you turn around and you're losing games after game. You're not losing games because of him right now. That's a positive.
It's so interesting. You talk about development, and basically what you're saying is the Peyton Mannings, the Andrew Lucks of the world are like once in a decade, come out of the draft and boom, a fantastic talent. It takes time.
Right. Even when you think about Peyton, like when Peyton came into the Colts, like he threw 30 interceptions or something like that, his first year, you know what I'm saying? But then they kept developing, then he becomes Peyton Manning, so you have to stop this comparing. I think there's a lot of players that get left out because of the comparing, where a team will only deal with you for a year or two, and then they pump the brakes on you. They out. Just like Tua. They are out on Tua before he can even start 20 games. Like you already trying to move off the kid where when he's coming out of Alabama, everybody was trying to move up to get him. But now you already trying to move off of him. He didn't even play 20 games. So I'm just like, my goodness, like we are such a popcorn society that you don't even get a chance to kid to even. And it makes and one thing I don't like about it, it lets everybody else kind of off guard, like other positions that are important. Oh, they're off guard. And where I'm going with this is you putting all this pressure on, like, oh, Tua the reason we're losing. No, that's not true. Crap, you was losing when he wasn't even playing. So, you know what I'm saying? So everybody else got to step their game up too. When you look at Kansas City Chiefs right now, Mahomes. I say this, like everyone putting all this thing on, oh, Mahomes this, Mahomes that. This is the reason the Chiefs are such and such. That's not just true. Like you're finding out now, you got to have a good defense to keep people from scoring points. So it's not putting so much pressure on your offense to score every time they touch the ball. You're also finding out how important it is to protect your quarterback. And now you see what Mahomes trying to do. He's trying to make up for a defense that gives up a lot of points. So now he's throwing interceptions. He's looking not Mahomes-like over these last couple of weeks that you're used to seeing him play at. And then you look at, the things that they're doing, and you're just like, they're dropping balls, things like this. You just don't see them do. And it's all because of built up pressure. And that's what happens. Like you're trying to overcompensate for things you feel like you lack in other areas. And that's what happens to a lot of young quarterbacks. They get built up pressure and they try to overcompensate for everything else that's going on in the organization. And that just can't happen.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And just touching upon that with the comparisons, these radio shows are 4 hours long, so they need to fill airtime. So they are splitting hairs. It's like unbelievable. Instead, why don't they just have people like you on as guests? You know what I mean? So anyway, it's so funny though. My Boston sports fan friends will enjoy that little segment there. All right, well, Jason, it's been fun chilling with you, man. I have some rapid fire questions for you if you don't mind, and we can kind of wrap this thing up. So got a few for you. Toughest arena you played in college?
Oh, LSU, Tiger Den.
All right. Your Super Bowl pick right now.
Right now, I have Green Bay.
Okay. Who would you rather play against, a zone defense or a man defense?
Oh, I like playing against man defense because just matchups.
Take your shots. Okay.
Yeah.
Toughest NFL defensive player you've ever faced? Any position.
Any position. Ed Reed, just because you had to be alert where he was at every play.
He was always lurking.
Right.
Favorite Thanksgiving food since it's seasonable?
Favorite? Oh, that's a good one. Dressing.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
dressing is a favorite.
Night game or day game for you?
I'm a midday game, 4:00.
Ooh, I like that. So
yeah,
no
like
11 a.m.
Yeah, I like those night games. You got to sit in the room all day. Those 1:00 games, you got to get up super early. But those 4:00 games, they hit just right.
There you go. Jason Campbell joining Lock It In with Cam Rogers. You can check him out on the Believe Network, of course, Believe in Everything Auburn, and you can hear him on the Auburn Radio Network as well. Jason, really do appreciate the time, my man, and chat soon for sure.
I appreciate it. No problem, Cam. Enjoyed it.